Everyone, here we go. So, to welcome and introduce you to using Blender, this is our most recent version here, and you might have a slightly different or more new version than what I'm using here, but all versions are relatively the same. So, if it's not exactly the same, I don't want you to worry about it. Now, whenever you first enter into Blender, I want you to kind of get a lay of the land. So over here on the upper right hand corner, we have the objects in our room. So in this case, it always starts you out with a cube. Then over here on the bottom right hand side, you see these are all of our properties. So we're going to be able to adjust different elements, and we'll be working with those along the way. Then down here on the bottom, of course, we have our timeline that allows us to animate. And over here on the left hand side are our tools. So to start off, I've got this cube. We refer to that as a primitive mesh. And we can always add more meshes by clicking up here on the top, doing add, mesh, and then we can grab something else. So I'm going to grab, I don't know, an icosphere right there. Now notice that it overlaps directly on top of the cube. They're right smack in the middle there. So I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm just going to move that adjacent over there like that. And let's move the cube over there like that. It's that easy. I can click on the white circle and I can move it freely, or I can click on these arrows and move them in either directions on the X, Y, and Z axes. Okay, that's about as simple as it gets right there. Now let's do a little bit of animation. So down here on our timeline bar, you'll notice that I'm down on frame 0. So for frame 0, our objects are placed right about here. Okay, that's where we're going to choose to put them. Now you can move your objects around however you want them to do, but for this first assignment, the only mission is to have your objects animate. We want them to rotate, we want them to scale, we want them to move. So we already know the move tool, that's what we've just been using. The one below it is the rotate tool, and it does exactly what you think it'll do. It spins it around. I can go spinning it horizontally, I can spin it vertically, I can spin it freeform if I go on this white circle area, right? Okay. And then finally is our scale tool. This is the third tool down, looks like a box within a box. If I click on that, I can stretch my object out, or if I click on the white circle, it'll stretch in proportion, so in all different directions at the same time. Okay, now we've got these goofy looking objects, so let's do something with them. So at frame 0, I want to start setting a keyframe. So I'm going to press this little white circle right down here, and that's going to go ahead and start to record any of these movements. So we've got our object here, it's ready to go. We know its placement, its area, its location, same thing over here. We've got its placement. Now you'll notice that over here in our properties window that we have these yellow bars, okay? Every time it's yellow, it's setting a keyframe, all right? But let's say, for example, whenever I go to rotate something, if I want to rotate it, look how my z-axis is changing. Do you see how that's like a slightly darker color? Watch this. Okay, so I go to rotate it, and it changes. See that? That number. Okay, so those are all of our keyframes. I can force a keyframe. For example, let's say I add a new object, add mesh cylinder. So here's my new object. Notice no keyframes right now. It hasn't moved, it hasn't done anything. But if I want it to stay right there without having to move it, I can come over and there's these little white dots on our properties panel. I click on a white dot like that, and that sets a keyframe manually. I can also lock my object so that it can't be moved whatsoever. So check this out. If I lock its rotation, its location, and its scale, then it can't be moved at all. It's stuck there permanently. So let's do a little bit of animation. Let's have our sphere and our cube jump over our cylinder, and maybe they hit in the middle and they bounce off or something silly. Okay, so we're going to animate one object at a time. Object number 1 is our cube. So frame 0, it's right there. And let's say by frame, I don't know, 40, it goes whoop, up in the air like that. And then by frame 60, we'll pretend that it hits the sphere and it rolls back down and kind of falls on the ground, something like that. Okay, right? So we've just put 3 keyframes, 0, 40, and 60. And again, you can put yours wherever you like, but it will automatically in between for us. Look at that. It moves it around. But that's kind of a straight line, isn't it? So what if on frame 20, we move it back just a little bit? So it makes it more of an arc. Look at this. Up, over, bonk, hits, and straight down. Now, I think at frame 40 here, whenever it hits, by the time it goes down, I want it to spin. I want it to really spiral out of control. So let's get our rotation. And I want it to spin both on the x-axis, like that, and I want it to spin on the z-axis, like that. Let's see what happens. So it goes up, it hits, boink, blah, 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 blah. Perfection. Okay, next up, we've got this sphere. So maybe the sphere is rotating the whole time, something like that. So from frame 0 to frame 60, let's do frame 60. We're going to have it rotate 1, 2, and 3 times around. So check this out. Vroom, 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 vroom. So that's how you get something to rotate, right? But now we need to move it as well. So that's our rotate tool. Here's our move tool. Let's say by frame, 30, this moves a little bit quicker. It's coming up. Make sure that you're looking at it in 3 dimensions. Okay, kind of like that. Okay. So it rotates up. It hits. And then by frame 60, it falls down. You know what? I think it needs to fall a little bit quicker than that. So watch this. In the timeline bar, I'm going to deselect by clicking anywhere else. I'm going to select just frame 60, just so you can see here. See how it's highlighted yellow? Then I'm going to move it, clicking and dragging a little bit closer. We'll say by frame 40. So check this out. 0, up, 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 up. 30, hits, boom, and it falls down. And there goes the square as well, right? So now we've got a little bit of animation going on. Let's do something with scale as well. Remember that cylinder? We locked it before. I'm going to unlock my scale so that I can actually do something with it. And let's say by frame, I don't know, right about here. Let's say frame 45. I want it to scale straight up, not proportionally, not like big, right? I want it to shoot up from the sky like that. But notice how it grows in both directions, in the top and the bottom. So I also want, I'm going to unlock my location. I also want it to move upwards. So it looks like it's physically growing forth, right? Let's check it out. Ready? Boom! Everything gets smacked and knocked around. Okay, that's it. That's the entire assignment. Once you've figured out and you've shown that you know how to move, rotate, and scale multiple objects, and you have your timeline going on, you've got your keyframing going on, when you are all done, you can just go ahead and save, do File, Save As, and you can save this Blender file and turn this in as your assignment. All right, that wraps up this demo. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to me or any of your other teachers. We're happy to help you. And let's jump into the next project. See you soon.